Hey guys, welcome to the TST Industries Yamaha YZF R3 Fender Eliminator installation video part 2. In the last episode, we showed you how to install the Undertail along with a license plate bracket onto the R3. In this episode, we'll be going over how to install our TST Industries LED pod signal kit on the bike, and also later, we'll show you how to install the OEM signals onto our OEM signal relocator bracket that fits with all these components in place. So let's begin. So if during checkout you opted to purchase the TST Yamaha specific pod signal kit, the components will be as follows. You will receive 2 pod signals, mounting hardware, and also our harness converters that enable you to plug one side into the OEM harness and the other side will mate with the bullet connectors on the signals themselves. The installation of this kit will be as follows. During the drilling procedure for your Undertail, you will need to pick the appropriate size hole that will fit 4 of these wires and also additional wiring if you're running a license plate light. So for this particular install, these wires are not all that large, so I believe a 1/4-inch drill bit will do the trick. If you guys are just watching this video first before seeing our part 1, this won't make a lot of sense, so I urge you to check out part 1. Link will be in the upper right hand corner. All right, as always, I like to deburr the holes I make. Since this is plastic, I like to use just a deburr tool with my hand. And now I'm going to test to see if 4 wires will pass through here. And it looks like I have enough space for the 4 wires and also an additional license plate light wire. So this is just to show you guys the modification to the step in part 1 where you would be drilling a hole through the Undertail. We already have that set up on this bike, so we will continue on the bike. All right, so the first step here will be to identify the proper wire pair to connect. As you can see, you have 3 connectors on this side, only 2 on this signal. You connect the harness converter to your OEM harness. You can see on the other side of the OEM plug, there are only 2 wires going to this plug, and those connect to the brown and red on our harness converters. So we will try those. Blue is not connected. We will try red to yellow and black to brown. Cycle the signals, and that does not produce an effect. So we will swap these around. We'll plug in brown to yellow, and always make sure that these shields are covering the metal pieces, otherwise you may create a short and blow a fuse. All right, and here red to black, and we have blinking. So we've also identified the fact that black is for the right hand signal and gray is for the left hand signal. So keeping that in mind, we will disconnect this and route this wire. Route the wire from the harness converter properly under a couple of the components here. I'm going to pull up on the starter relay to make room for a clean, straight route. I'm going to go under the wires going to the plug of the rectifier. And make sure this is as straight as possible and ends up back here. I'm also going to pull up on this wire just to have some more access here. We'll redo that later. I'm going to grab the second harness converter, plug that in, make sure that the clip engages. You don't want to lose that plug out of there later. Route it the same way. I like to keep this plug accessible. This is the license plate light plug. We'll use that later. Show you in another video how to install the license plate light on this bike. All right, so now this looks good. The routing looks good. I'm gonna put the components that I removed back in place. Make sure nothing is snagging. All right, and the key thing here is to still be able to yank on them a little bit and know which connector they're going to. So here we have flag for right, and again, gray for left. So now at this point, we can configure one of our signals along with its mounting hardware. So for now, we'll only be using the L bracket that comes in the hardware kit. Spin off the nut from one of the signals and making sure that we have the round hole towards our license plate bracket and the slotted portion towards the signal. If we're going to work on the left signal first, this is the way we want to configure the bracket onto the signal. And now we can put the nut over the wire, flange first, just like that. And we'll just get it on here, just finger tight, not even tight, we want to still have some adjustability here. And now I will snake these wires through a hole in the undertail to the top. And we'll continue on with the connection of these wires. So it's identified the left signal leads because I've started working with the left signal. And from a previous step, we remember we're only going to be working with red and brown on the harness side. So we'll plug in black to red, we identified before, and yellow to brown. What I like to do now before I get too far into the installation is just verify that I'm got the proper effect, got the light flashing, we're good to go. So now we will need to lock down these caps that cover and insulate our connectors, because during riding, vibration and whatnot, these can slip off. And like I said before, you could create a short and it'll blow a fuse. So what I'll do is just lock them in place with some electrical tape. This is kind of a tight spot here. We'll be able to pass the tape around comfortably, at least not at the size that it is right now on the roll. I'm just going to cut a piece off and work with smaller parts. So the key to a good tape job is to keep it very, very tight. And just like that, we have a nicely packaged connection here. I'm going to move on to the other side. All right, so I'm going to start working on the right side signal now. I'm going to spin off the nut. Grab the other L bracket, arrange it appropriately, and then feed the wires through the slotted portion. Get the bracket over the threaded boss. Get the nut on the wires, flange first, and thread that on leave it a little bit loose so that we have adjustability. Snake these wires through. And connect them to the other pair of brown and red wires in the same scheme as before. Once again, actually before I insulate this, I will make sure that I have flash. Okay, both are flashing now. I'm good to go on the insulation part. So here I'll just do the same thing I did on the other side. Just quickly put a couple windings on it. All right, now we have a nice tight little package here. Get it out of the way. Put this plug back in its captive geometry here again. Make sure all this stuff is routed properly. If your bike is equipped with this insulating sleeve for the signal wires, I suggest you can put that on, put that back on at this point. All right, and now we can go on to the actual physical installation of the signals and the license plate on the bike. All right, so now I have my right signal verified. This is the right signal that's activated by the right hand switch, and this is the left signal. Now I'll grab the rest of the hardware from the hardware baggie that came with the mounting kit. I'll grab one of the screws and the smaller washer, and also a larger washer and one of the nuts. We'll take my license plate and feed the screw and washer through, just like that. And I will move my signals to the rear of the license plate bracket and proceed to assembly just like this. I'll use the bracket holding the signal on the back of my license plate bracket and feed the screw through that assembly. And now using the larger washer and nut, I will fasten this connection. One important thing to note here is that these are locking nuts. I have a little star locking element on one side. That side should be making contact with the surface of the washer on the back here. I don't want to tighten this just yet. I want to have plenty of adjustability, so I'll leave it loose. I'll grab the other portion, the other side portion of the hardware. Basically repeat all the steps on this side. Screw through the washer, through the license plate, through the license plate bracket, through the signal bracket, large washer on the back of that, and then the locking nut with the star element towards the washer that I just put on. Now I'm going to center the license plate and also fine tune where the signals are going to sit and start locking down on this entire assembly. Use a 10mm open-ended wrench on the nut that goes on the back of this assembly. Now I also have to make sure that these signals are level. All right, that looks good. Test the system one more time. So as you can see, we have hyperflash occurring on this signaling system. There's a condition where the signal is flashing much faster than the OEM rate. It's commonly caused by replacing an OEM incandescent signal lamp with an LED type signal that draws much less current. Best fix for this condition is an LED flasher relay. We supply these relays. We also have an installation video on this particular bike. You can see that video by linking to it in the upper right hand corner of the screen. So the way that I've routed my wires is very basic. It just goes straight from the signal behind the hinges of this system and into that hole. You can get more creative with how you route your wires. All I'm gonna do at this point is just zip tie them together so they don't move around. Just make them nice and neat. And that's pretty much it. That looks good. One more thing that remains to be done is locking these guys in place. So there's that nut with the flange that we spun on to the L brackets. It just locks down with a 14 millimeter open-ended wrench. What I'm gonna do here is make sure that it's perpendicular to the ground. And that looks good right there. Now remember, this nut fastens onto a overmolded threaded stud. If you over tighten it, you'll pull it out of the rubber and you will damage your signal. So what you're looking for here is enough tension so that the friction between the rubber and the L bracket and also the locking serrations on the back of the nut flange keep it in place, and you'll see that vibration won't move it and road bumps won't move it. So I think that one's done. Now, try to get this one exactly the same. That looks pretty good here. And that does it. So this install is complete. For the reinstallation of all the OEM components that we've taken off, you'll need to see part 1 of this video. We show the reassembly of all those components at the end after the installation of the Undertail and the license plate bracket. So now we will move on to showing you the installation of the OEM signals on our OEM signal relocation bracket and explain how that attaches to the bike with our whole Undertail and Fender Eliminator system. Now, in the case that you want to reuse your OEM signals and install them along with our Fender Eliminator in this fashion on a bracket like this, we have a bracket kit that you can get as an option when checking out purchasing this Fender Eliminator. It will come with 1 bracket and 2 screws, and that will allow you to mount your OEM signals on this system. So let's go through that installation right now. We'll start by deconstructing the OEM Fender assembly that we took off in one of the steps in part 1 of this video. We will start by removing these 4 quarter turn fasteners. And then we will need to remove these 2 Phillips screws. And also a Phillips screw on either side here and here. And that will undo these 4 millimeter Allens. There are 6 of them. I'm just going to crack them loose first. Now this back shroud should be able to come off. Now we have access to our wiring on the inside of this Fender assembly. We'll just get all the wires out like this, identify the two signal wires that have the gray and black plugs, remove them from their routing guides. And now the signals will be able to be removed. To remove these signals, we will need to remove the clips that hold them in place. Once this clip is removed, we can just turn and pull, and that will come out. These clips will actually clear the plugs, and the signal can be pulled out entirely. Show you one more time how these things are jammed in place. So the signal fits into this orifice here, and it sits with the wall of this orifice inside this channel, and then this clip portion jams it in place, and that's what prevents it from coming out. We need to understand this for proper installation on our bracket. So again, to remove it, just peel back on this, remove the clip, turn, twist, pull, and this will come out. It's pretty simple. Now we have to consider what size hole to put into our Undertail. In part one of this video, we drilled a small 3/16 inch hole in this area to pass a license plate light through. In the first portion of this video, we drilled a 1/4 inch hole for 4 smaller wires. Now we have these bigger plugs that will need to be passed through, so we'll need to pick the appropriate size drill to put a hole in this Undertail so that we can actually fit these signal wires from the outside to the inside. And I have a 3/8 inch drill bit prepped here. So I'm going to drill that size. That looks good. Let's see if I can actually pass this through. And that sounds, it looks like it's going to work. I'm going to deburr the edge of the hole by hand. And this step isn't necessary, but it produces a nicer effect. Now, as you can see, we can pass 2 of these through. A little tight, but they'll pass through. And then we have enough space to fit a license plate light wire through there in case we're installing a license plate light on this setup. So moving on. We will need to configure these signals on our relocation bracket. So this bracket looks like this from the side. This would be the rear of the vehicle, this would be the front. So naturally, this is the right, this is the left signal. Knowing that Yamaha color codes right as black and left as gray, that's how we're gonna approach this install. I'm gonna have, left, right. I'm going to feed the wire through just like this, and then insert the mounting boss or the pod for the OEM signal into our relocation bracket, starting with the slimmer end first. And you just need to work that through so that the flange comes out on the other side and locks it in place. Now we will use one of these locking clips, insert it on the wire with the flange last, the insert portion first, just like this. And that will go in place here and jam this assembly in place. Just need to make sure that the little tabs on the insert actually go into the rubber slots and are locked in place. And now this thing's not going anywhere. Repeat that on the left side. All right, looks like this portion's done. So now we'll just need to configure this setup on our Undertail and along with the license plate bracket. So here you see how it's configured with our standard license plate bracket. The longer screws that come with this bracket would use the same washers that your standard license plate bracket comes with. Insert through the license plate bracket, through the relocation bracket, into our Undertail, and on the other side it will be fastened down with the same hardware that came with a standard license plate bracket. So it would end up looking like this, but with the OEM signals hanging off of there. If you are using our adjustable license plate bracket, the only difference would be you will have the entire adjustable license plate bracket assembly underneath here, and that is itself threaded. So you just reverse the orientation of this screw, put it through the Undertail, and then it passes through this relocation bracket, and then it screws into the hinge bosses of your adjustable license plate bracket. So beyond that, the installation of this entire assembly on the bike is the same as the installation of just the Fender Eliminator with the Undertail. So we won't get into that. You guys can check out part 1 of this video, and that will clue you in how to do that. At this point, we're pretty much done. If you guys have any questions, send us a message. The link to our email is down in the description of this video, and we'll see you later.